Forum by the union, Wausau Education Association, and it's open to the public.
Okay.
So,
So next
put
Wednesday?
Tuesday, yeah.
Tuesday, 4:30.
Yeah.
Hello,
I should be able to, I'm sure I can.
Carol, I want to talk to you after a while, too.
Hi.
I want to talk to you after a while.
Okay.
For that
That'll be
April
better
1st
than
meeting,
sit
I'm going to
as-
suggest that we move it up a
Yeah,
week
I know.
if possible, in the case I have something, because I might have something
Sure.
I want to bring to you guys.
Sure,
You mean the.
sounds good.
Town hall,
Oh, I know.
scheduled
I
at this.
know, because I was.
Good afternoon.
We're having
It is 4:30, and it is Monday, March 4th, and I'm calling the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting to order. We have a quorum present. Second on the agenda is public comment and suggestions. Do we have any public comment or suggestions today? If not, I will move on. Number 3 on the agenda, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from Monday, February 5th meeting. Motion made by Watson, and I'm looking for a second by Larson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion passed. Number 4 on the agenda, discussion and possible action authorizing the execution of lease for Radke Point Park and Grace Park with the city of Schofield. I have to do it every time. Schofield. And I'm going to turn that over to the Parks Director, Jamie.
Yes, this is, turn my microphone on. This is a formality that you have seen these leases before. I believe the last one was a couple of years ago. I gotta look and see how many years this is up. It's every so many years that we have to renew these leases. Nothing has changed in the lease other than the date. Really, it has gone to the airport committee. They have approved it, which is really is airport property. It's already also gone to the city of Schofield, and they have approved the leases. Like I said, really the same leases we've had before for these parks for the city of Schofield to continue to maintain and improve them. There's a procedure that they go through if they want to improve them. And it's on airport property, so it's not necessarily, it comes to this committee because it's considered parkland that we used to maintain. Now it goes to the city of Schofield to maintain. So the city attorney's office has been working on this, and they are the ones that took it through the airport committee and to the city of Schofield. So I don't have anything, every 2 years it commences. So that is in one of those whereases, and then they do pay us a small fee based on the value of the park for the operational needs of what we typically would use for it. But
Do we need a motion to
I'll
approve
also
it?
make the motion that we accept the lease agreements on these parks.
Thank you. And a second on that? Second by Lukens. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any proposed? None. Motion passed. Then we'll move on to number 5 on the agenda, discussion and possible action approving the softball use agreement for Athletic Park.
yes, so thank you very much. I'm going to just pull up my agenda summary that I have for you here. Kind of the small overview that I have. I did put in a use agreement into your packet. We have made some small formatting changes that will be in your packet when it goes to the city council with the final little formatting changes that we made. We had one of our new city attorneys look at it and just made some good suggestions on some changes of format. So it's a little bit different that you'll see on when you are in your city council packets and what you have in your packet, but overall the substance hasn't changed. But what we're looking to do is I've been working with Mr. McDonald for the last 2 years on this particular agreement, from the idea that, as you know, and this has come to the committee earlier last year, where there's a possibility of bringing a women's collegiate level softball team to Wausau, just like the Woodchucks are. This would be a softball organization, and it would be under the umbrella of the organization that's the umbrella of the baseball as well. So this would then oversee both softball and baseball. They're not planning to come until 2025. We're bringing this agreement forward to today in 2024 because there's some things that have to take place. This committee's also, and the city council has already approved the installation of turf on the infield of Athletic Park. That is one of the things that needs to take place in order to have the softball come to town, so they don't typically play on a grass baseball field. So that would allow for both uses. So by putting this agreement in place, it allows Mr. McDonald and the organization to move forward with further conversations on the softball league, and then further conversations and ordering of that turf to put in, because we wouldn't put that turf in until after this woodchuck season in the fall of this year. So there's a lot of work that has to be done, but it's some pretty big infrastructure and commitments. Lou, do you have a question?
No, I don't have a question. I just, as much as I'm opposed to putting the artificial turf down, I'm also very much in favor of bringing tourism to Wausau. So I would like to make a motion to approve the softball use agreement in item number 5.
All right. I'll make it.
Mr. Larson has made a motion. Is there a second for his motion? Second by Watson. All in favor?
We'll have-
Aye.
Pardon me,
you have
Madam
discussion.
Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, discussion.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I.
Lukens?
Thank you. I am extremely in favor of bringing this to Wausau. I think it would be really good for the community. But even though we did approve the artificial turf earlier, I still am extremely concerned about it. And, you know, one of my questions, since we have some time with this, is there's been talk in the legislature about banning PFAS throughout the state. And so how does that affect this? And I guess what I'm wondering is, are there any alternatives? I'm extremely in favor of this, completely in favor of this, except for the artificial turf portion of it, especially with seeing that now. And I guess, my real struggle is that we as a city have entered into legislation, a lawsuit, about PFAS. And then how can we approve, that? That's my concern. And I guess, are there any other alternatives to that? Because if it is banned, we're not going to be able to replace it. So it just seemed to me that now is the time to talk about that before we move forward. Thank you.
Mr. McDonald? And just to be clear, you're approving the use agreement, so if you don't approve the use agreement, then we don't move forward, because he's not going to do work if you're not going to approve this use agreement. But the fact of the turf has already been approved, so we're not here to ask for approval of the turf again.
Yeah, and actually, I'm not really prepared to talk. I didn't really bring all that information back again with me, so I just know that the last time we debated this here, there are no PFAS in there. There's PFAS in everything. There's PFAS in microwave popcorn, which if you knew how much was there, you'd probably never eat it again. But the amount of there's amounts of PFAS in AstroTurf, and that's our research, and that's what we've found. I don't know about this legislation. They're banning PFAS, but are they banning our artificial turf? I'm not aware of this legislation or what it means to us or anything like that. As for alternatives, okay, when it comes to having baseball players and softball players coexist on a field, and I think the goal here is that we have a beautiful facility and athletic park that we want to make available to all of the population and not just 50% of the population. And so that's the goal here, and also to elevate and women's sports in Wausau, and put us on par with the other two cities in the state that are going to be doing this are La Crosse and Madison. The only way they can coexist is with turf. The ladies will not play on a grass field, and the men will not play on a skinned infield. And so those are kind of the other alternatives, and they don't work either way. And so that answers. Go ahead.
Can I ask what the reason is that they won't play on a grass field?
Oh, because the ball, a softball is so much bigger than a baseball, and the the ball just catches in the infield, and it doesn't, the thing about softball is a very fast game, and the ball moves really, really quickly, and that's why they like it, especially the fast-pitched softball. And you can't get that on a grass field.
Yeah, and no levels of fast pitch softball play on a grass field.
No, nowhere. No. In collegiately, about 75% of the colleges have a turf field. Some in the south will have a dirt field, but the bigger schools really want turf because you can play with bad weather.
Any other comments? Alder Killian?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and no questions, I don't think, but thank you for the information. I just wanted to respectfully clarify that artificial turf is essentially, as a component of the complete total agreement, it is something that can be germane and considered. It's number 7 under Article 2 in the agreement, so whenever an agreement comes up, I think every element's in play. And items, and number 7 says that WCS and department will select an artificial turf of agreed upon quality. Do you know what the quality metrics may be, and would there be the opportunity, given some of the concerns about contaminants, to I would hope that, you know, with some of the citizen concerns over the years, that the marketplace may have come up with some turf that perhaps has a better composition or reputation than kind of what's out there in a mass form. Would that be something that could be looked into?
Yeah, we've only started the process. We want to go with AstroTurf because it's the best quality turf out there, and it wears the best and it plays the best. And if we're going to do this athletic park, we're going to do it right. We're going to use it the right way. And this is going to be a challenging process. And Jamie and her staff and me and my staff will be sitting down, and we will debate everything. And in that process, we can ask about PFAS again if you want to. Sure.
Yes, in addition to any other contaminants of concern that are often brought up in association with artificial turf. And yes, I hope in the future that occurs and that that can be sought out. Yeah, let's hope the market and the private sector has maybe brought forth an option that could lessen concern. Unfortunately, that's not in here today. So due to the concerns my colleague brought up and that I have, I won't be supporting this. But that being said, I hope in the future that could be brought into play, finding an offering that is less controversial on potential contaminants, and I do wish the endeavor success other than that item in the agreement. Thank you.
Any other questions? Alder Lukens?
So, there definitely is. I can tell you, talk about legislation. I've read a number of articles on it. So right now in Wisconsin about banning any materials, okay, that contain PFAS, and artificial turf does. I have done a ton of research, but anyway, I too, if there is some that doesn't, or if there are alternatives, I guess my question is, since we have some time with this, is it possible to, put this on hold? Could you do some checking into that, and then could we come back with this?
We really don't have time for this. I mean, we are on not to bring it in 2025. If we're going to do it in 2025, we've got to start the process right now of discussing the artificial turf, because the turf will go in August and September when it's still warm and the weather is really good and Athletic Park is sitting empty. And then it will sit all winter and be available for us come the spring. It's really hard to get done on a short-term basis.
And I understand that, but could you, since you are looking at artificial turf, could you bring that back here? Could we find out about that before things move forward?
Well, if it goes out of committee, then it goes to the city council, and we could have further information before you when it's in front of the city council, correct, Ann? Yes, it goes to the city council. And in just looking at the bill that's been introduced, it looks like it's preventing certain products where PFAS added, like food packaging, cleaning products, and cosmetics, starting in 2028 is the legislation, is the proposal, and then banning other products in 2034. So we're almost to the life of the turf, if that were to become where all of it was. And then we would have to decide, what we're going to replace it with, if it were to be an issue. But we can bring back more information on this particular product like we had when we brought it forward to last year. And then I can pull up a few more things about this legislation that's proposed. It's not been put through yet, and the sessions are almost done for this session now, but I can bring forward what this would mean, and if turf is on here, I can do a little bit more
Yeah,
research.
I can tell you that if we push this off now, it will not happen in 2025.
Right. So we can bring back more information when this goes to the city council for if that's a particular item that you want more information on, as well as the proposed legislation. But right now, that's the proposal beginning in 2028 and 2034. That's what it looks like.
Mr. McDonald, I have a question. And I don't exactly have all the facts, but out of curiosity, what you're going to be putting down at Athletic Park, is it anything similar that they have at Lambeau Field?
No.
No, Lambeau's grass.
Lambeau's it's a synthetic grass is kind of the best way to describe what they have at Lambeau.
Right, and they have that woven into real grass.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's not.
Okay, just checking, thank you.
And the school districts are putting in turf at the school districts, but not AstroTurf, or it's not AstroTurf. So it's not the same product that Mark is proposing.
Yeah, Alder Lukens.
So I'm just going to say one other thing. Whether it's AstroTurf or another turf, it's all still made from plastic. That's what it is. So I've researched this a lot. The school districts are putting it in. That doesn't make it right. Nothing makes it right if we're truly concerned about health and the environment. That's my concern. So I know there are a lot of arguments to minimize that. I know that there are a lot of people that are concerned about it. So I would like it not to be minimized. I am willing to let it go to council and have a discussion on council, but I do not want it to be minimized because, again, if we are involved in, and I don't want to, I don't want to stop development. I do think this is a really good thing, but I don't understand why other options can't be looked at, because at some point we need to start doing that. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Oh, Alder Larson.
I'd like to call the question. I don't believe we're not here to discuss. We've already agreed to, at prior meetings, to put in the artificial turf. We're here to talk about the lease agreement, and so I'd like to call the question.
Point of inquiry and next point of order. So I'd like to ask the parliamentarian if, in fact, artificial turf is germane. I would be surprised if it's not, because it's listed as number 7 under Article 2 of the agreement we're deliberating on. So to Alder Larson's point about not being relevant to this, I'd be eager to hear if it is indeed germane.
Off the cuff, Alder Kildian, I would say that because it is a provision of the agreement and you're being asked to vote on the approval or disapproval of the agreement, you could move to amend it to remove that requirement. But with that said, I'm not sure that's going to move forward then. Again, that would all be open to you, but we are not discussing tonight rescinding whatever approval was given for the artificial turf, but it is germane, I would say, to discuss it because it is a provision in the current contract. But whether or not any recommendation regarding amendment of this contract passes your committee tonight, it would just be a recommendation that goes to the full council.
Thank you. Just
Yep.
the confirmation you provided that it's germane would be sufficient. Thank you.
But why would it be germane if we already voted on it
Are you
to
are you
approve it?
calling on Alder Larson?
Yes, Alder Larson.
Okay, why would it be germane if we've already voted to okay it?
Well, because it's a provision in the contract. I mean, it is counterproductive, but you're voting to approve it. So you can vote, if the majority of you doesn't approve the current draft of the contract, I guess that's up to you. We'd point that out at council. I'd probably bring forward the minutes and the resolution or whatever approved the turf, and then say the committee, by a majority vote, voted not to recommend the approval of this contract because of the inclusion of the turf, but council, you should know you've already approved this, so how you want to move forward from there would be up to the council.
I guess I have a question.
Yes, Jamie?
I have a question for you, Anna. Maybe this is for us to talk about. But we put it in the agreement because he needs approval that we're going to, I mean, we already have approval that we can put turf in. We've already had that approval.
And again, I
But-
didn't go back and look at
Yep.
that resolution, so
But
it's not
this-
at top of mind, but
Right, that was already approved. The contract basically just lays it out there, what was approved at that meeting, and then says that the city then will own the turf once it's.
Right.
Just like the scoreboard and anything else that Mark has improved on in that facility is now ownership of the city, and we are to maintain it. But just like the scoreboard, it's a one-time purchase of an improvement. The artificial turf would be the same. Would we, based on, I guess I'm asking, does it make sense to be in this agreement? This use agreement is for the facility for 10 years. It talks about the fees that they pay per game, stuff like that. Should there have been already another agreement when we approved the turf that would be just for the turf for that one-time purchase to say this is approved, here are the agreement, they purchased it?
I see what you're talking about, and I think that is a possibility. Yeah, that could have been in a different agreement other than the use agreement for this particular league.
And is that something, because it's already been approved, with that different agreement?
I'd have to go back and review all the documentation. I can't give you that opinion as I stand here off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look. Did we just approve the installation of it? We didn't approve any payment toward it, correct?
There was, well, it was in there that we approved to own it after it was purchased, but the purchase would be from Mark's organization.
I'd have to go back and
Yeah.
review that. I'd be remiss if I tried to give you an opinion off the top of my head standing here.
Well, I guess that can be in.
I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
germane to discuss it because it's a provision of the contract. It might be counterproductive since you've already approved it and you haven't rescinded it. That's why it's logical that it's included in this agreement or an agreement.
Yep.
So pointing that out, that it's already been approved, you can still vote to not approve the agreement because it's in there. I mean, the committee members could still do that, and because it's a provision in there, I think they can discuss it, but I would still advise them, you've already approved it, and you haven't rescinded that.
And my question was about how germane it was to discussion, Ms.
Right,
Jacobson,
right.
which I believe that's self-evident. The answer is yes,
Right.
because it's in the agreement.
Right,
But we have the option to possibly take it out of the agreement.
yes,
Okay. Well, we can
I would
do that.
entertain that, but I'd need somebody to gather the public
Yep.
trail for me, or I'd pull out all the documentation and want to review that.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Alder Lukens, go ahead.
So, like I said, I can't say this strongly enough that I'm extremely in favor of this. I really am. All I'm asking is that, you know, are we able to look at any other options? That's all for the turf part. That's all. So, I mean, you know, if that can be revisited, so.
The answer is no. I mean, this is how baseball and softball coexist. They are two completely different games, played very differently with a different, and that's what's really unique and exciting about both of them. And this is the way that they coexist.
Madam Chair.
Alder Killian.
Yes, and I only had one brief comment before the conversation had been prematurely stifled, but what I was going to say was that in between this time and council, if by chance, there is something in the marketplace or that the private sector offers that may have a composition that's a little more inclined to not be associated with the concerns Alder Lukens and I hold, then I would be up for at the council meeting, perhaps revisiting the stance I explained today, and maybe that can happen, but just wanted to throw that out there, so thank you.
Jamie, do you have any comments?
No.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I'm going to look for a motion to approve.
There's
the-
already been a motion. and a
Okay,
second.
so we voted second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I myself, opposed?
No.
Motion passed.
Okay.
Moving-
So
okay.
we'll do a little bit of research that brings stuff back along with the packet when this comes to council and make sure it's cleaned up with the small changes formatting changes that were discussed. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Moving on, 6A, under park updates. You have in your packet several things, but I'm going to discuss them briefly. Athletic Park bullpen blacktop renovation. We do have some fence install work to do before the opener. DPW will be paving the area for us. Our work is dependent on when DPW can get the asphalt. On Gilbert Park, questions have arisen regarding the red pine. The red pine is not leaning anymore. Brockmeyer Park, quotes on a new backstop are still coming in. New doors and windows have been ordered for the press box renovation. Infested ash tree has been removed. Oak Island, the building is up and construction is completed for the most part. We are still working on electrical. France Plumbing should be in soon to start the finished plumbing. Items that we still have to do there, parking lot modification, new light pole with lights and possible camera, and concrete work around the building. Sylvan Hill, despite the weather, we've had a very successful season at Sylvan Hill. The staff worked extremely hard to keep the hill in usable condition and open when it needed to be. And again, I would offer as well kudos to all the staff involved and for their willingness to put in extra time to make that hill available this year. Sunday, March 3rd is last rental and will be the last day that Tubing Hill is open. Encampments. We once again have removed encampments following the proper notice at Riverside Park, Isle of the Firms, and the 400 block. Jamie, do you have any comment on that, on the encampments?
No.
Anything to add?
We just continue to work with Wausau PD on it, and we are following, there is going to be a Supreme Court case, I believe in April, that will be very important for us to follow to determine what comes out of that and what we can and can't do in the city. Regarding encampments, there's a lot of pieces to that Supreme Court hearing, not just the parks and encampments. It's very, very broad when it comes to homeless and encampments and personal rights and personal property and all kinds of things. So that's just something that will be more to come because there will probably be some different policies put forward or some tweaking of some of the policies that we have, not just for the Parks Department, but maybe for PD and other areas as well, once we know what the ruling of that is.
Thank you. And the last item on the educational items are the city ball fields. We will start to work on the city ball fields next week in anticipation of an early spring,
Well, depending on the weather.
excluding today. Number 7 on the agenda is future agenda items. Do we have any agenda items for the next meeting? Alder Killian.
Madam Chair, if it would be possible, I just have one quick question on the updates item. Would it be possible to ask that?
Sure.
Okay, great. Well, since Oak Island restroom is on the list, just briefly, Ms. Polly, could you kind of in the context of the larger restroom situation, which Oak Island restroom would fall under, give a little preview of information that may be coming out, because there'd been some citizen inquiry about restrooms, and just kind of what the time frame is on that.
Yeah, so today there should be on our website, and I believe it should have been put on our Facebook page, brief press release. We had to do this, I believe it was 2 years ago too, when we had such an early spring, although we had no winter this year. With, when we had 60-degree weather on weekends and stuff, that our playgrounds and everything are very heavily used. So the press release just basically going out is saying that we are watching the weather, as we normally do, but our bathrooms won't be up and running until probably I think I put in there mid-April, because we usually wait until we know it's not going to freeze anymore. If we were to turn on all of our bathrooms today and it freezes overnight, we have a lot of broken pipes and stuff like that. So I think people just need to understand that we're still in the very beginning of March. It could continue to snow, it could not. We're watching the weather. We'll start working on getting everything up for spring and spring ready as we can, but we're going to be very diligent about turning water on and opening up restrooms when we know that the danger of freezing pipes is no longer there.
Thank you.
Number 8 on the agenda, discussion and possible action on the absence of the director for the next meeting date, which is April 1st. And I thought that perhaps this was an April 1st joke, but it is not.
It is not. I will be in Puerto Rico that day. And so I put this on there because as of right now, we may not have any particular items, but there could be a chance that I do have something that I want to bring to the committee. In the past, we've talked about the city-county, agreement and our services, and I really would like to bring that forward if possible. I don't know if I'll have it ready for April, but my goal would be. But because I'm not going to be here on the 1st, I could have another staff person do it. I would prefer to be here for that, and so just wondering if the committee would be open to at least tentatively setting a date, either for the Monday before, which would be the 25th. We could meet after the Bicycle and Ped Committee meeting, or even the week after, which, looking at April, would be April 8th, and we could meet after the Human Resources Committee, whichever the committee would prefer. We still would then, if we had anything going forward to council, would have time with either of those meetings to get it on that April 9th. It looks like that's the only council meeting on the schedule as of right now, for any action if needed. And I believe that's before this council would switch over to.
Pardon me, Madam Chair, excuse me.
Go ahead, Alder Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last Monday in March will not work for me. We have neighborhood meetings on that Monday, so.
Okay. What about the 8th then of April? Does that work? Sarah? Work for you guys? So we would just meet, I'll talk with our Human Resources Committee Chair to see about how long we think that's going to go, and then I can set the meeting for after that meeting, so it may be like a 6:30 meeting possibly that day.
Committee agreeable to that?
Okay. And if we don't have anything actionable, then I'll let you know ahead of time, and we won't have a meeting, but that will at least tentatively set a date.
May I share just something momentarily?
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with our Park and Rec Committee, but since they were talking about April 1st, and you can certainly cut this from the record and delete it, but many, many years ago, I can't remember the gentleman's last name, but first name was Nick, and I can't remember the partner that he had on radio, but he would always pronounce Target. Well, many years ago, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm listening to the news, and they're telling us that today Nick is telling me this, he says, make sure that before you leave the house that you cover all your phones, because the telephone company is going to blow out the lines today. So before I left to get on the road, I covered up every phone in my house. I came home that night, and my son said, Mother, any particular reason why the phones are all covered? I said, yeah. I said, the telephone company is blowing out the lines. And I said, I didn't want dust all over the house. He says, Mother, it's April Fool's Day. So I had to share that because, believe me, they remind me of that quite often. So I'm very cautious when it comes around to April 1st. Last but not least, I'd like to take a motion to adjourn this meeting. Motion by Watson. Looking for a second.
I'll second.
Second by Alder Larson. Motion made by Watson, second by Larson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Meeting adjourned? Thank you, and have a great week.